develop some of these work disincentives. I'd be interested in your thoughts.
Okay, I think the next hand is always yours. You can get a mic to you, just here in the middle.
My name is Joe Karl from Mazars, and I'm just a layperson here. One question I want to ask from I suppose the crisis. What is it taught? Looking at an institute or a structural level, what is it taught us about the science of economics and what place it plays in formulating fiscal policy? It's something that should be used more. That's the first part. And the second part is how is it used and who makes decisions? And who formulates those, and is our current structure with academics, the ESRI, and the various departments, is it now fit for purpose, and should that change as we go forward?
So there's certainly a lot of questions. I'm just going to take three more, and if you could be reasonably quick with your questions, so that we don't run too far over. Joanne, I think.
One quick comment on the question. The comment is, it strikes me that we have a big problem that we don't actually have a low tax economy. We've got low direct taxation, but many indirect and in often cases regressive taxes. What impact for that on competitiveness? And the question is, what impact do you think a general election could have on fiscal policy in the next 12 months?
Yes, Jim.
Thanks. Philip, on your last slide, you have the need for nominal wage flexibility in public and private sectors. Now, in the public sector, we've had the public sector pension levy, but that's rather a strange beast. And as one might expect the public sector to provide a leadership role in this, do you think something better might be on the cards later on, a plain vanilla wage cut? In particular, I know that the failure to put it in as a wage cut means that the pre-existing pensioners are left untouched and that future pensions are left at the same level and same grade as well as the structure.
And the final question, just right here.
One comment, one question. I'd just like to compliment everyone involved with the Irish Economy blog. It's a tremendous advent on the scene. I'm an avid reader of it. I have no vested interest. I am now retired. So, but it is a tremendous gap that's being filled there. And my question is simply like, are we possibly going to be condemned to killing the patient? I mean, is there really an answer to this?
Well, absolutely wonderful set of questions. So you have your hands full for a little while, so maybe about 5 minutes.
So the advantage of lots of questions in only 5 minutes is no one expects me to give very good answers. There were a lot of really interesting points made here. On a huge range of different dimensions, and that's of course the nature of fiscal policy. It's so all-encompassing. Liam asked about the fact that a lot of individuals are carrying a lot of debt, and so of course this debt, which is not indexed to earnings, they kind of entered debt contracts which don't say if I lose my job or if I take a pay cut, I'm going to pay you less. So that of course does make the problem worse. But it doesn't mean that the solution is to, at this point, say we will not cut normal wages. Because the household's capacity to repay debt is going to be much more compromised if the level of unemployment goes up. And also if essentially if I have a 20-year mortgage, it's not just my financial situation this year or next year, it's the whole financial future of the economy. So I think it'd be better if we didn't have so much normal debt, but that's where we are. Jim O'Leary asked me about what the right deficit number is for next year. I suppose my view is that outside of the funding risk issues, is first of all the fact that we're now being beaten by the US and the UK helps in not going for too severe fiscal contraction. But it depends on what if one believes that they're going to get down to 3% in 5 years, or whatever the current plan is. 10.75% in next year is probably okay. But that's conditional on implementation. It's conditional on implementation of 10.75 and it's conditional on the subsequent implementation. So it's hard for me to forecast how well the government, whether it's this or the next one, does in that. Any 1 year's deficit, I don't have a strong view on, so long as we get back to fiscal sustainability. The issue about tax rates is interesting, and also goes to Karl's this question about the incentive effects. I mean, clearly right now in a very big recession and lots of pressure on pay levels, the kind of incentive effects for high earners of imposing high taxes are a lot lower than if the rest of the world were booming and so on. But the issue here is really now versus 5 years from now. I mean, behind all the crisis resolution is what is the future long-term profile of the economy. And what I was emphasising earlier on is if we think we want a smart economy, we have to look about what are the tax treatment of high earners. So I think, and this is Karl's point, we have a pretty complicated system of levies and tax rates and so on. And the issue is whether it's more sustainable, it's more likely that a levy can be abolished than if you consolidate all those levies into the regular tax system. That again, the historical pattern around the world is if tax rates go up, the persistent factor is really high. So because there will be a lot of political lobbying for whatever reason. Lots of people like high taxes and high public spending. That the dynamics of levies, which sound a bit temporary in nature, versus tax rates, I think is an interesting question to debate. This question about investor opinions of Ireland and banking sector is, I think, in economics we call this an interaction term. If we didn't have a fiscal problem, the banking issues would not be very important for the spreads because we could handle the bank. The fiscal cost of the banking bailout is sizable, probably will be sizable, but not at the same order of our regular deficit problems. And I don't really think there's any kind of a trade-off there. That clearly, in order to solve the banking problem, having a sustainable fiscal position is very important. Because all of this turns on the ability of the banks to essentially use government debt or NAMA debt for liquidity purposes. That's only possible if this is seen as high-grade debt. So for the banking sector to work properly, we need to have sustainable public finances. It's hard to take those apart. Tim Callan, I'm just going to jump because yes, I think it's more straightforward now on a wage cut. Maybe it made sense the first time, given the perception of gold-plated public sector pensions. But the next time, a more straightforward wage cut is desirable, and that does include the implication of there's a lot of public sector pensioners who have pretty high incomes. I mean, anyone at a senior level is making more now than they made in their regular salary 15 years ago, I'm sure. So, of course, below some threshold, we don't want to touch pensioners. For high-income pensioners, they could be making a contribution to the fiscal adjustment. A really interesting question about the general election. And my comment there is that what's really important now is that all political parties basically have responsible approaches to fiscal policy. And my reading of what's been happening is that that is true. That there's been no kind of extremist view that we should repudiate the debt, we should do X, Y, and Z. All parties have essentially been contributing in a serious way to the fiscal debate. And what that means is whoever's in power hopefully will be able to address the problem. Lots of issues about the science of economics, the role of the economists in policy making and so on. But I think that's for another day. So let me stop there.